So the Philadelphia Eagles had some rather bad luck these past couple years, actually, even though they won a Super Bowl in one of these years. I mean, they were not a healthy team when they won that Super Bowl. They had Carson Wentz hurt and also Jason Peters hurt, and they still managed to win a Super Bowl. And then last year, Carson Wentz once again went down, and also it didn't help that literally all of the running backs were hurt, it seemed like. It was a position of need, and so they decided to address that position of need in the second round by getting Miles Sanders. It makes a lot of sense in my opinion. Philadelphia is looking to compete, so why not get a guy who can have an impact right off the bat? He's a very talented back who had a great combine, and also doesn't have a ton of wear and tear on his body, especially from just being behind Saquon for all those years. And when you add on to the fact that Philadelphia offense is really built on RPOs, you need a good running back for it to work, and last year you definitely saw the impact when they didn't have a consistent running game. And getting the number 2 running back on the board with the 53rd overall pick, it seems like a no-brainer really, so definitely a good decision by Philadelphia. But anyways, let's get into what makes him such a great player, and let's start things off with this play. The way this play is going to start off is Penn State is going to have their left tackle and left guard double team that edge rusher right over there, and then the left tackle is going to move up to block the linebacker over there. Although one thing you'll notice right off the bat is that edge rusher is actually going to move up to the top half of the screen relatively significantly. So this now means it's going to be very easy for Sanders to simply break to the bottom half of the screen and easily get around him. So that's what he's going to try to do. However, now there's another problem that has developed. The linebacker also realized what was going on and tried to break to the bottom half of the screen. So now Sanders has to run in between the linebacker and the edge rusher. Nothing crazy, he will obviously be able to do it, but look at how quick he's able to do it. That's kind of what I like about it, is the quickness. Obviously he was going to be able to pull that off, but the fact that he was able to do it and do it quicker was definitely more impressive. It was a well blocked play, so honestly the first down was pretty much a given, but because he was able to get there quick enough, now that gives him to this situation. He has more space now to try to get around that Illinois defensive back, and look at how he's able to do that before finally getting tackled. It was first off just a well blocked play, so you have to give credit to Penn State's offensive line, but you also have to give credit for Sanders for being able to pull that kind of run off. Basically, when you're checking off the boxes of what makes a halfback good, on that play he checked off every single box. He had footwork, he had speed, and he had acceleration. I mean, what else can you really ask for? Well, I guess there is one thing, right? And that would be football IQ. How good are you at figuring out which hole to run through and also knowing the exact speed you need to be running when you do run through that hole? And well, let's just show this play as an example. It actually is going to be all one-on-one matchups. There is one double team, but that player will then get off the double team and get up to block that linebacker, so that's going to be the blocking concept. But one thing I like about this is look at how Sanders kind of just walks up to the hole. He does not go very fast at all. He lets this play develop, because now there is going to be a huge gap right there, but he let it develop. He didn't try to hurry through it. Sometimes the more patient you are, the wider the hole will get, and that's what happened right there. So now it comes down to how quickly can he accelerate through that gap and get to the second part of this play, and the answer is going to be very quickly, as he once again gets past that, and now it's just a safety he has to worry about. One thing I like about him in this situation is look at his legs, and really there's no way of knowing which direction he's going to be going at this point. It really appears as though he's going to be running straight into the Illinois player, so honestly, if you're a safety, you do have to be aware of that. You have to be wary of him potentially trying to run you over. So he's going to quickly just cut to the right and then to the left. He jukes out that guy and is able to power his way into the end zone for a touchdown. Again, these are really highlight level plays that he's kind of making look easy. By the way, he's just so quickly able to do everything right. He actually might accelerate most when you can give him an open space. That's kind of where he really thrives, and this one will be an example of that, where basically the way it's going to work is that all 3 of those Penn State players are going to go out to block somebody. Then from there, they'll just simply toss it up to Sanders, and he'll run in that direction and see how far he can get. It's a pretty simple play. A lot of times in football, there's a lot of clever and intricate details and, trying to figure out all these little things. Not this time. This is just a foot race. It's we'll block what we can. Eventually, there will be an Illinois player that's unblocked. Hopefully, Sanders can outrun him. And so look at his speed here. Look at how he's able to just run fast, turn up field, and also notice how he gains about another 3 or 4 yards after the tackle. He almost always seems to fall forward on these plays. That's a key thing as well, is falling forward. That really matters a lot as a halfback. I mean, when you're gaining an extra 2 yards every carry just by your ability to fall forward, that it really means so much for a team. I remember Marshawn Lynch was the best at that. I mean, it seemed like he always gained 5 yards after contact just by going forward. Again, I don't want to call him Saquon Barkley because he's just not. That's an unfair comparison. Barkley's one of the biggest prospects and has potential to be one of the best running backs ever. But he kind of is like Barkley light in a lot of ways, where he has a lot of similar details to what Barkley has. I mean, this next play will actually probably be a little bit of a better example, as it's going to be all one-on-one matchups, and this is actually an RPO here. Although I should say it looks like an RPO. It might actually not be an RPO. It might just be designed to try to trick somebody into thinking that it could be an RPO. Sometimes these look like RPOs, but they actually have a designed play, and it's really impossible to tell just from watching which one it is. And the reason why I think this might have actually been a design to run all the way is the fact that this offensive line clearly really didn't do a great job on this play. And not just that, but look at that Illinois player right there. He's doing exactly what you want to do here. He's close enough to the outside that he could potentially tackle the quarterback if he does try to run up to the top half of the screen, but he also isn't too far up to the top half of the screen that he can't potentially make a tackle if it is a handoff. So that Illinois player, along with several others, are in the area. There's a lot of red jerseys here, and since the quarterback is going to hand it off to Sanders, what is Sanders going to do here? Well, he just has to power through, and that's going to be exactly what he does. Look at how he just puts his head down and runs through and is able to get into the end zone. I mean, we can break down some of the details of these plays all we want, but the reality is sometimes you just have to put your head down and power through, and that's what Sanders did there. Another reason I wanted to show that play was because it was an RPO type situation, which of course Philadelphia loves to run. Granted, Philadelphia's RPOs tend to really just be focused on the run or the pass, not really focused on the quarterback being able to run as well. Usually there are 3 options, although Philadelphia doesn't really like to have the quarterback run too often if they can avoid it. But having a good running back can really help you using RPOs, and this play will be an example of that. As you see, for all Illinois knows, this could be a run to the top half of the screen, or the quarterback could keep it himself and run straight there. And once this play develops, take a look at the man who's in charge of covering Sanders. He's doing a good job of running up and making sure that Sanders doesn't turn the corner and make this play. But of course the problem is Sanders doesn't have the ball, and so this just completely took away an Illinois player. Now Penn State's quarterback is easily able to run over and get the first down because the Illinois player just wasn't in the area. That's the kind of thing that makes RPOs so effective, is the fact that because Sanders can run so effectively, you have to make sure you're paying attention to him. And whenever you have to pay attention to one player a little bit too much, that's when you can take advantage of that. Granted, just because you can tear it up in college doesn't necessarily mean you'll be able to tear it up in the NFL, but it is a good indicator to know that because you can do so well in college, you probably will at least be able to do decently well in the NFL. But like this one's another example. Once again, similar situation. It could be a run to Sanders, or the quarterback could keep it himself. And as you see, as of right now, this is when Penn State's quarterback has to make a decision. Either give it to Sanders or keep it himself, and his decision is going to be based on that Maryland player right there. Basically, the decision for Penn State's quarterback is a relatively simple one. It's, do I think that if I keep the ball myself, I can turn the corner, get around him, and get into the end zone for a touchdown? If the answer is yes, then do that and get into the end zone. If not, well then just hand the ball off to your halfback and take advantage of the fact that there is one less Maryland player you have to worry about. But again, because Sanders is so effective and does fall forward, as I've shown before, this now means that if you do not play too far up enough, Sanders can easily just run forward and get into the end zone for a touchdown. You have to make that contact very quickly if you're going up against a tough guy like Sanders. But because he's playing too far in, this allows the quarterback to keep the ball himself, run into the end zone for a relatively easy touchdown. So I wanted to show those plays to show how it can fit into an RPO type system. And I know that's not really exactly the Philadelphia RPO system. I know they have a very different one. Carson Wentz isn't the type of guy that's going to be running too often. He will run from time to time, but that's not the main part of his game necessarily. It's very different than a Lamar Jackson RPO situation that they have going on in Baltimore. Although, I think a lot of you guys realize that having a good running back can be effective in an RPO situation. But is he a great running back? And the answer, in my opinion, is he's at least a very good one. And it's not just on plays where the Penn State offensive line does a good job. Like, if you take a look at this play, there is going to be a one-on-one matchup with a center going up against a defensive tackle, and that is not going to work out very well. The Maryland defensive tackle wins his matchup incredibly well, and now this is trouble for Sanders. While he wasn't able to make the tackle, Sanders is in trouble. I mean, basically the line of scrimmage has been pushed back 3 yards. But one thing you're going to want to notice about Sanders here is look at how far bent over he is. I mean, he's basically squatting at this point. The entire time his knees are very much bent like that because that allows him to maintain his balance and also be able to move in a quick direction. It gives him the body control he needs to be able to move over, and he also has the leg strength to get away with it. It's just good running right there. I mean, that's the one that the offensive line gets back to in the huddle and says, hey man, thanks for that one. Because, they didn't do a great job blocking for him, but he was still able to pick up some yards. So much of the running game is offensive line blocking. The running back does tend to get all the credit, even though they don't necessarily always deserve it. But when you can turn what should have been a 3-yard loss into a positive play, and a significantly positive play, that's what turns bad running games into good running games, having a running back who can make that kind of a difference. One last play I want to talk about, and this play is actually a relatively interesting one. The way it's going to start off is that it's going to be 3 1-1 matchups, but the left guard and left tackle will be moving up to block those 2 linebackers. And because of that, you might be saying, doesn't that mean that the edge rusher is now going to be completely unblocked? And the answer is yes, but no. Once again, it's going to be an RPO, and so the RPO is designed to take away that extra man, essentially. Since it is going to be a handoff, this now means that player is further away. And this is kind of what I mean when I say on an RPO, the advantage you can have of handing the ball off is it takes one player out of the way. That edge rusher can move over and try to tackle Sanders here. It's all going to depend on, can Sanders get through a hole quick enough, and does he have the acceleration to get past that edge rusher? And that answer is going to be an absolute yes. He is able to run over and get past the edge rusher, and it's not until the safety that he gets brought down. So again, I have full confidence he will fit very well in that Eagles system. I think that he will be a very good running back, and he could surprise some people next year.